I will admit that I have a bit of a beef with the Toyota Vios, particularly the previous generation. Not because it was a bad car, but because it was a bland car. It didn't really have a USP or offer anything new to the market. But because of that Toyota badge, it sold really well. So Toyota plans to rectify that with this one, the new rebodied Vios. Now you have to forgive my skepticism here because this is not an all-new car, it's largely a rebody. The engine is the same as the old models and so is the chassis. Although you have to give props to Toyota for giving it a good repenning. Get some styling cues from the Altis, particularly these slim upswept headlights that go right up to the middle of the fender, and this sort of pinched grille, which gives it a bit of an aggressive look. And speaking of aggressive, just look at this lower central air intake. That's a lot of black space down there. Now, as you've guessed, this is the 1.3E model because it doesn't have the LED daytime running lights. And this is the Prime model because it has this body kit. Now, I do wish it came with a bigger set of alloy wheels because with this kit on, it looks a bit under-tired. Still, I have to give extra credit to Toyota for also giving the sides a bit of a redesign. The doors are different, both front and rear, and the fender as well. They even bothered to change the rear quarter panel. Really, the only thing you'll recognize here from the third generation Vios is the roof, which still has those bubbles on top, and the side mirrors. Now let's go check out that back. Now more of that baby Altis theme continues here at the back. Longer, slimmer, and sleeker taillight units further accent that. Again, this is the Prime unit, so it has this neat little tail spoiler along with a body kit down there. I say the end result, it makes it look more mature, more grown up than before. However, the silver color doesn't really do justice to the new Vios. When I saw it in bright red, I thought it looked pretty good. But in silver, it kind of ends up looking like a fleet car with a body kit. And those small wheels definitely didn't help. Now, if you haven't had the time to visit your nearest Toyota dealership, you'll probably know what it feels like back here when you hail a Grab. Anyway, legroom is actually pretty good. It's not exactly class leading, but it is pretty good nonetheless. Decent amount of space still. However, I wish they would move the center armrest a few inches forward. Now, if you're seated in the center, you might find yourself banging your knee against this, so a few inches forward would definitely help. There is a handy storage pocket in front of you, although there's still no rear armrest. It makes up for it by having ISOFIX mounts, which is very important if you're carrying an infant or a small child. Door panels are new for the 2018 model year, although one thing that seems to be less in the new Vios is headroom. Now, I'm not that tall, and if I sit upright, my head could brush the headliner. And I reckon that's down to the addition of the side curtain airbags, which is good for safety, and it comes standard even in the taxi spec models. Now, the rear seats themselves are actually pretty comfortable. The bottom cushions are soft and the backrest offers a fair amount of support. Now, this pattern is with the 1.3 models, and the 1.5 models get a different seat pattern. Now, it also comes with headrests. That means your head doesn't have to jiggle around when the road gets a little rough, and even the center passenger gets a headrest. Now, they've raised the seat, so that also means a little more under thigh support, so you don't have to have a cramp on a long trip. So we've seen what it's like here at the back, so what is it like at the front? Now let's go check that one out. Now, it's a big improvement here at the front, especially that they finally got rid of that nasty fake stitching that surrounded most of the dashboard and the door panel. Some of it is still left, particularly around the center stack, but still, it's better than the old one. Now, the dash itself is completely new. It's somewhat like a baby Altis, just like the exterior. Now, knobs and dials are much higher than before, And of course, touchscreen is pretty much standard in every model except for the basic ones. Now the steering wheel also, that comes with fake stitching, but at least it comes with audio controls now. And also the dials, which sort of had that tacky overlay, that's been redesigned to a cleaner blue hue. One thing I do wish the Vios had is a telescopic steering adjustment. As you could see, it's still only tilt. You can't really pull it towards you. Still, you can only do so much with a major rebody. You can't totally revamp the whole thing. But still, it feels a little more upmarket here compared to the older ones, and well, it's a lot more ergonomic and it has more cubby holes, especially right here at the front. Which means they moved the charger down here by the handbrake. And again, I wish they moved the armrest forward because in my driving position at least, there's barely enough of it left. So we've driven the Vios around in the city. Oh, what is it like on these winding, twisty, and uphill roads of Tanay? Now this is the 1300 model, and you could probably hear the engine being a little more vocal than usual, and this is in standard drive mode. That's not to say this car is totally underpowered. We have a full equipment of camera on board, along with 2 extra passengers. But I reckon if we had the 1500 model, the 1.5G, it would struggle a little bit less. Still, full marks for handling. It's not the most dynamic car in the class, nor is it the most fun to drive. But I will have to note that having tested the old Vios, the steering is a whole lot better. There's more weight and more engagement and feedback behind the wheel. It also lets you have a better idea of where your tires are pointed, which is very important when it comes to handling. As for ride, well, it's actually not bad. It's actually even better than the old Vios. It's not as wallowy or as jiggly as before, and there's the general feeling of a bit more solidity in it compared to the old one. Actually, if you open and close the doors, there's that deftness and that heaviness you didn't find in the previous generation model. That said, this generation is more of a half step, so some of its sins from the past are still evident. Now, you still have that bit of a plasticky interior and all that, and sound isolation could be slightly better. Although if you're coming from the previous generation model, this is a big improvement. Now you have less than 100 horsepower under the hood of this car, but that's not to say the Vios is underpowered or ill-suited for steep roads or steep hills, winding roads, and all that. It's adequate, but it can get a little bit vocal. Now if you're going downhill, the Vios benefits from manual override. Now that means you don't have to ride your brakes all the way down and risk burning them. You can engine brake downhill and just let it coast, which is a good thing because you don't want overheating brakes downhill. Even on not so perfect roads, the Vios still rides pretty decently. Now, you're not going to expect this thing to drive or ride like a Camry, but for a small sedan, it's actually not bad. And for some, it's better than what they would expect. Probably thanks in part to the smaller tires of this 1.3E model. Handling is slightly better than before, although it's not exactly the dynamic masterclass of the Mazda 2 or any of its rivals. Still, it feels planted, safe, and secure, although it's not exactly going to light your loins. Now, performance. We are headed uphill, and I have to say that the 1.3 engine is being a little more vocal than usual, mainly because we have a lot of equipment on board and I have 2 extra passengers as well. Should you be solo driving, it's actually not bad, although I would recommend you get the 1.5 liter engine if you travel along hills and winding roads all the time. Still, it returns pretty decent fuel economy. Right now we're doing 9.2 kilometers per liter, and that's a mix of inner city traffic and this provincial road. So it lends itself pretty well, and if you go for the economical choice, well, the Vios isn't half bad. Unfortunately, that fuel tank is a little too small. It's about 42 liters, so that limits range. So don't be surprised if, even if you are doing around 11 to 12 kilometers per liter, your fuel needle gauge drops off pretty quickly. Now, when it comes to brakes, the Vios is still a bit typical Toyota. There's a bit of mush in the middle, although it stops straight and true, and it scrubs off speed pretty well. I'm also glad to report that the Vios has stability control and traction control just to keep you out of harm's way. And if the unfortunate does happen, you have 7 airbags to protect you. And I say that is a very, very good deal, especially with this. This isn't even the top of the line model. This is just the mid-spec E Prime, and not a lot of cars in its segment offer this much safety equipment for this price. So how much are you expected to shell out for this 1.3E Prime model with a CVT? It's about 933,000 pesos. Although, you could save yourself 50,000 pesos by getting the non-prime version. All it doesn't get is the body kit. After all, you get the same safety equipment and standard equipment. Now, why would you go for a Vios when there are other competitors out in the market? Well, it's a safe choice, made safer thanks to the addition of 7 airbags and stability control. Plus, you have the backing of ASEAN NCAP, which recently gave it a 5-star safety rating. But overall, the Vios is a half step from the old model. But still, it's a half step in the right direction.